Hello. So we're on part 18. I am on page 171 of our book Posted. Wolf's phone buzzed. He laughed at something, then sent a quick reply. Was that her? He nodded. She says she's sorry she couldn't make it, but football's not her thing. Hold on, my Kindle just shut off. There it goes. I thought back to Rose's first day, standing with Bench in the hall, watching her part the crowd. She'd make a good linebacker. Down on the field, 3 little kids were chasing each other. A referee shooed them away. I wouldn't exactly call it our thing, Dee Dee said. The voice came on the speaker and began announcing the teams, starting with the visiting North Westchester Wildcats. We booed and told them just how much they sucked, so much that they were going to put Dyson out of business, said Dee Dee, earning him the award for the lamest trash talker of the night. The few adults closest to us gave us dirty looks, but they were still several rows away. A couple of weak, sputtering fireworks announced the home team's arrival. We stood and cheered as the Falcons took the field. Dee Dee pointed. Is that him? It was a little hard to tell. We'd sat too far up to be able to pick Bench out from the crowd, so we waited for the starters to put their helmets on and huddle up. Bench was easy to spot once he'd assumed his customary position, number 80, sitting by himself on the end. The opposing team looked a lot bigger than us, galloping across the field like a crash of rhinos. At least if it's a blowout, Bench will get a chance to play, Dee Dee said. The ref blew the whistle. The Falcons fumbled the kickoff, giving the visitors the ball at the 50. Yeah, there's always that, I said. I sat and watched with my hands tucked between my knees. It wasn't a blowout, though. By halftime, the score was only 17-zip, which was better than I thought it would be. Dee Dee's die was right about the lack of home team touchdowns. Then, during the halftime show, one of the cheerleaders fumbled through her flip and planted in the grass, laughing and shaking her head. The die rolls true, Dee Dee said, doing his best Gandalf intimidation. Though I couldn't remember the White Wizard ever saying that. Dee Dee's dragon was 2 for 2 so far, though. I was about to ask what my mom's chances of winning the lottery were. She got 1 ticket every week, but on the ensuing kickoff, the Falcons ran it all the way back for a touchdown, proving the die wrong. The crowd whooped and hollered. We banged on the bleachers. Dee Dee celebrated by buying us a bag of popcorn to split, careful to take the stairs all the way on the end so that he didn't get too close to where Jason and company sat. Wolf sent Rose updates on his phone, or maybe he wasn't texting her about the game at all. Another touchdown at the end of the third puts us within 3. It was close. Number 80 sat on the edge, helmet in hands, waiting like always. Definitely not going to play now, Dee Dee said. There was too much at stake. At least we could tell him we came, I thought. That we were all pulling for him, all 3 of us. At one point, he turned and looked at the crowd, and Dee Dee and I waved, but he must not have seen us because he didn't wave back. Dee Dee finished off the last of the popcorn, then finished off the last of my Sprite. The score stayed the same throughout most of the fourth quarter, with neither team making any progress. With 2 minutes left, we were forced to punt, still down by 3. That's it, Dee Dee whined. Game over. Seriously, why do we even come to these things? I can watch Bench sit on his butt at school if I want. Except not anymore, I thought. Not at lunch, anyways. I didn't say it, though. Just cheered half-heartedly for the losing team. The Falcons kicked the ball. The Wildcats player fielded it at the 40, returned it 10 yards, then 20. It looked like he might break free and put us out of our misery. The rest of the Wildcats were on their feet. Then the kid dropped the ball, or maybe it was wrestled away from him. Either way, it was squirted free, ping-ponged off a dozen hands and feet before getting buried under an avalanche of jerseys. Whistles thrilled. Referees rushed over to the pile. Dee Dee muttered to himself, "We didn't get it. There's no way we got it. We never get it." The mountain of players slowly peeled away, and a kid in a white and blue uniform popped up holding the football like he'd just found gold. The crowd exploded. The Branton Middle School Falcons had possession with a little over a minute left and 60 yards to go. I looked at the home team sideline. Bench was standing with his teammates, cheering the starting offense as it ran back on the field. The first play, a run, went nowhere. Then, one quarterback, a kid named Trevon Miller, who everyone called Trey, took the snap and made a quick completion in the middle of the field, hitting one of his receivers for 10, just as the kid got blindsided, steamrolled by 2 Wildcats, slamming him to the ground. There was a hush. The kid who caught it didn't snap right back up. The Falcons called their last timeout with 20 seconds on the clock while the assistant coach helped the kid limp off the field. The shook-up receiver waved to show he was all right. "You don't think," Didi said, fishing in his pocket, but he didn't have time to roll for it. We saw Coach Mallory point. Saw number 80 jab his thumbs at his chest. Didi and I started to holler. Wolf put away his phone. Bench was off the bench. I scooted at the edge of the bleacher as number 80 lined up at the slot on the right. Just about everyone below us was standing. The crowd screams failing to fill the Canaveral Stadium. I spotted Bench's parents leaning over the bottom rail, his father clapping his hands above his head. Trey called for the snap, dropped back, sidestepped a defender, scrambling, buying time. The seconds ticked. Down to 18, rolling right, another missed tackle, 15, looking all over the field, 12 seconds, desperate. His receivers were all covered, 2 red jerseys for everyone, except for the one. In the middle, as open as the Pacific Ocean. The other 2 receivers were blanketed along the sideline, but there was Bench at the 20, putting his hand up, calling for the ball. Nobody was covering. He had somehow slipped through the cracks. Even from way up at the top of the stands, I could sense the quarterback hesitation, but there really was no other option. Trey pulled the trigger. The ball flew out of his hands, a torpedo tearing toward Bench. A flying brown prayer launched into the sky, and I thought, there's no way he catches it, because that's not how the universe works. Movies maybe, but not real life. Not for people like us. Not for the outliers, the bench warmers. But I'd been wrong before. By magic or magnetism or just sheer luck, it dropped right into Bench's waiting hands and nestled there perfect. There was a half second, maybe less, when I swear Bench looked down at the ball in disbelief. Then he started to run. The defense, suddenly solving the equation, tried to converge. Some were taken out by blockers. Others were too far away to get there in time, but one closed in, had the angle. He went for the knees, determined to bring Bench down and end the game, but number 80 leaped, legs brushing against outstretched fingers, hurtling over the would-be tackler. He left the kid grasping and spinning in the dirt behind him, rumbled down to the 10, then to the 5. The night split with the whistle's shrill cry. The ref thrust his arms into the air. 4 more pathetic fireworks briefly lit up the field. Fans started dancing and jumping in the aisles. Didi turned and gave me a high five. Unfreaking believable, he said, which kept me from having to say it because it really was. And in the midst of it all stood Bench, alone in the end zone, unable, it seemed, to let go of the ball, even to spike it, until his teammates mobbed him, crushed him, swallowed him whole. I looked at the scoreboard for confirmation because sometimes you need to see it in writing. Branton Middle School Falcons 20, North Westchester Wildcats 17. Wolf stood beside us, shaking his head. "That's it then," he said, and even though he was smiling, his voice wasn't quite. If anything, he sounded a little disappointed, almost as if he'd seen it coming. We pushed through the crowd on our way down to the field, hoping to get a chance to see him, at least to say congratulations. But Bench was already lost in the sea of white jerseys. They actually lifted him up and carried him, 24 hands propelling him halfway across the field, away from where we stood. We could have gone down by the locker room, I guess, waited outside for a glimpse of the night's hero, but Wolf said, "We're never going to get his attention now," and led us back to the front gate instead. He was right, of course, but I still wish we had the chance to say something. In 2 years, Bench had never had a moment like this one, never. This was his poem. It was his $50 gift card. "Some catch, huh?" Didi said. "Did you think he was going to drop it? Because I kind of thought he was going to drop it." I shook my head. "I knew he'd catch it," I lied. All around us we heard people, mostly adults, murmuring about what a terrific play it was. Someone asked, "Who was that kid?" And I almost told them, but I fumbled with what to say. JJ? Bench? My best friend? So I ended up not saying anything. We walked through the gate and stood out in the parking lot. The cold had gone from nipping to gnashing. I shoved my hands under my armpits to keep them warm. "You know," Wolf said, "you never seen them carry riders like that." I gave him a strange look. "Huh?" "Riders, like famous ones. They'll do a reading or something, and when they are done, everybody will just clap politely, and that's it. They don't come over and lift the guy up and parade him through the bookstore on their shoulders, or surgeons. You never hear about a team of nurses surfing a heart surgeon out of the operating room, and why not? He just saved a man's life. He should be carried around. Not to take anything away from Bench, but all he did was catch a ball. I wasn't sure what he was getting at. Sure, but could you have caught that ball? I asked. No, but I bet Bench couldn't get through 4 measures of Chopin's Mazurka in A minor either. Wolf took out his phone again and started texting his parents for a ride. Dee Dee called his mom. Mine was already waiting for me in the parking lot. I could see the white Civic flashing its lights at me, like some kind of Morse code. She waved at the 3 of us as we walked closer. We're still on for tomorrow night, right? At Wolf's house? Dee Dee asked as I opened the door. You guys promised. I've got a whole new campaign lined up. There's zombies and everything. I assured Dee Dee that Cedric the Elf would not let his fellow adventurers down. Then I waved goodbye to Wolf, who gave me a nod. He was still looking at his phone, a huge grin on his face. Maybe it was too much popcorn and soda, or just the excitement from that last play, but my stomach was rolling. So, how was the game? Mom asked as I buckled in. I thought about it for a moment. We won, I said, as if the fireworks didn't give it away. That's good, right? Apparently the tone of my voice was a little off. Good? Oh, yeah, it was a great game. Probably the best I've ever been to. She looked at me, pressing me for more. But I just looked out the window. I didn't tell her how Bench, the first friend I made in middle school, a kid she's baked brownies for and taking to amusement parks, how he made the game-winning catch. I don't know why. Maybe I felt like it was one of those had-to-be-there things. Or maybe because it wasn't my moment and I didn't feel like I could do it justice. I wasn't a good enough poet to put it into words. Or maybe, like Wolf, I felt like this was the start of something. And I was nervous about what came next, because things like this didn't happen to guys like us. That night I dreamed I won the Nobel Prize for Literature. I had no idea what the Nobel Prize looks like, but in my dream it resembled the Stanley Cup, a glinting metal behemoth nearly twice my size, with handles on the side. It had my name, my real name, Eric Voss, engraved along the base. I was the first middle school kid to ever win, absolutely unheard of, though that didn't stop the 2 women in silver bikinis from kissing me on the cheek as they handed me the trophy. There, standing and sweating under the auditorium lights, I gave a speech. I thanked my dad for introducing me to Robert Frost and my mom for pretty much everything else. I thanked my friends for believing in me. And then I stood and waited for them to come up and carry me, to lift me on their shoulders and parade me through the audience and out into the lobby. I scanned the crowd, but I didn't see the faces of anyone I knew. Instead, all I could see were notes, 1,000 blank squares of paper where heads should be, filling the auditorium in a sea of yellow. That's where I spotted her, Rose. Standing in the balcony, dressed like usual in flannel and jeans, hers was the only real face in the crowd. Her eyes seemed even brighter than the stage lights, and her mouth was twisted into that punchline smile. She looked completely normal except for the pair of antlers that protruded from either side of her head, branching into fuzzy nubs. No one else seemed to notice the antlered girl standing in the balcony, the blank yellow faces staring straight ahead. I just stood there, paralyzed as she climbed up into the ledge, standing on the edge in her giant bare feet. She spread her arms wide. "Catch me!" she said, and then she jumped. We'll stop right there because it's a new chapter. Okay, head over to Schoology.